Alright, Roger, Mud Fossil University today talking about Puma, Punku, but before we do, you have to understand there were creatures here that had sophisticated vehicles, and this was a slab cutter that cut slabs and was in wet tendons from giant creatures. If you look carefully, you'll see these are like tank treads. So it would be supported and wouldn't sink into the wet tendon. And they cut slabs of literally meat, and here's what they did with them. All right, they took that tendon, these slabs, and moved them over there to make these walls. And they took them out wet, and when they put them in here, they just pushed them in certain ways. You know, they were kind of creative, but this is rotting, deteriorating, biological part of a body. Now, this is probably the tendinous part or some really fibrous muscle, and this is like inside the bone or something, but it's this piece right here, and it's eroding. And there's a lot of spots that are, look at this one, it's falling apart. And that is because they were taken from different parts of the body. If you take them directly from the tendon, which I will show you now, they are tough as hell. Now, you saw the vehicle driving over these, cutting them. This is just solid fiber. There's almost no active biology in these after they're set up in your body. They are literally inert, and they are just strappy and tough as tough can be. So they were digging in pieces that they shouldn't have, it looks like, in that wall, showing where it eroded, because you're not going to get any of that out of this. Now, you saw that soft walls and how they put those pieces together. Well, they also did another thing where they took that wet, also still wet, ground all these pieces up and extracted the metal. And what they left over hardened up, or they used it for these things at Puma Punku. You see it's identical, same, ground up. If you look at this carefully, you're going to see these are little tiny bits and pieces. This is the blood, the black blood. This is bits and pieces of tendon and bone and so forth. This is the red blood. And that is the only piece of metal I could find in this counter. 32 feet straight counter. Well, not straight, but it's 32 feet of this counter. Now, what else is a granite? Granite is just homogeneous. All right, these, like this one here. All right, that's it. That didn't come out of ground like that. Somebody ground something up, flopped it on the ground, and all hardened up after a while. Now, they took these and they made it. This is exactly what you find in the ancient statuaries. And the same thing at Puma Punku. They didn't just chip these away with little copper chisels. It's absolute insanity, the things they say. And I have a PDF here. Let's see if this comes up. There it is. A few years ago, I did this about, removing gold and all of the different things out of it. And, what is basalt? Basalt is dark colored, fine grained, igneous rock. They call it igneous rock. And it's so fine you can't see the different particles. Granite, totally different, which I just showed you. Intrusive, not supposed to be where it's found. It's coarse, textured rock in these granules. That's why they call it granite. And there's holes in between them in many places. And they always seem to be found near these orogenic mineral systems, which are loaded with the chemistry of blood, which is blood metals, which is the transition metals and all of that stuff. And they also have the rare earth metals, I believe, or will be highly concentrated in blood. Now, this talks about worldwide average of granite based on 2,485 analysis. There's no precious metals in there. No precious metals to speak of. They took out the gold, the copper, zinc, lead, everything. So the platinum group electrum metals, used to call it electrum. Those precious metals are gone. This is all stuff left over from mining down in Peru and these places. It's so obvious. How it could possibly be missed, I don't know. But these things are form pressed. Some of them were in chunks of actual flesh. They just dug it out, flopped it in like with a big old shovel, and crushed it into a pattern. That happens. And then you will find biology in those rotting away like that big wall was rotting away in little tiny spots, but not but it was pressed into a press. I've seen them in a lot of places, all over the place. They made drainage ditches out of them, and they used them for all kinds of things. Just put them there, pressed them in place. Simple as that, like putty. It's like working with clay. Now this is from an actual creature at one point. This is not. This is true. What granite should be, which is from a creature's body, still has the metals in it, and you're going to see formations like this running through it, and over here where there's blood vessels, and this is the color of the red blood, this is the color of the darker blood. All right? So that's what you got. This is real stone from natural stone. The other stuff is processed body parts. All right, I don't need to get too deep into Puma Punku. I just want you to understand what they did was these. If you see this, these were just globbed up and thrown in a press, and then they put it to the side. The next one thrown in a press. These came right out of living, well, the dead creatures, but they were still in the process of drying out. They were still wet like putty, and they didn't bother to grind them all up and try to get the metals out of them. That's why you see red things running out of them and all that. That's the blood. Now then there's other places where they did. Well, see here, here's another one. You see that this is what they did. They just took it right out of the creature's body, put it in there, and there must have been places, because this appears more of flesh, like clay, because that's what your red flesh is clay. So I think that's what they did with the red flesh, and then they got down to the tendon, and they used it for something else. But this red flesh is clay. This is clay, and that's what you use to mold things, is clay. Now, this is what they call granite, which is the ground up stuff, and then they pressed these in like forms. That's all they did. This is not the things they say. Oh, they dragged them miles and miles. No, they didn't. They ground them right up on site, and then they turned them into their building materials. They just pressed them. It's I don't know how anybody could have any other thought. And you can see that's blood. I always talk about the moss and the lichen. Way up here, you're just looking lichen. You're getting lichen. And you're not getting any moss, because maybe it's just too high up or something. I don't know. But I can tell you one thing, that was from a living creature oozing out things. Now, I'm watching, here's that gate again. Now, that's just like concrete. I mean, I don't know how anybody can not understand that. Absolutely amazing to me. Anyway, but they don't, I know they don't understand that the world is made of creatures, which it is. Everything they take out was from a creature's body, and you see stuff like this. Obviously, that's concrete, and they think they chiseled this with some kind of little. I don't know what they think. To be perfectly honest, anymore, I don't know how they can miss this. Now, then of course you have all of these heads, all kind of different types of creatures' heads in here, and I have people at Mudfalls University, like Kim, has found a Naga head, and I don't think they have one of those in here. I think we're the only one with those. Kim's got it. Now, Puma, Punku, and Sumeria, they had the same. They found a bowl that had this text in it. It looks the same to me. Now, so they were all working together. Now, here's the deal. This is 12,000 feet above sea level, something like that, maybe more. And here they are. Look at this guy. He's got a drill press in his hand or something, or a jackhammer. Anyway, this is 12,000 feet above ground, and there was a time when the Earth was flooded. Maybe they were building up here because there's no place else to build. I don't know, but I can tell you one thing right now: they were building scraps of dead bodies that had died recently. Now, because it's a tender stone, and they took these, and it was all wet, and they just shot something. You take a tube and you just go like that right through the wet stuff, and that's how you get it, which boggles their mind, because they say, oh, they had some special laser device, this and that, and all these caves, they did it with fingernails. I'm not kidding you. the stuff was so wet and gooey back then, it ran, well, I'm going to show you. Alright, now this is probably pretty substantial now, but still you could chip that away very simple. That's like red ochre, very powdery. It's arterial blood. These guys are looking up there. This was at one time muscle from some gigantic creature. Just get over it. And so was that tendon I showed you that they were digging with these huge tractor cutters, whatever they're using. Now, at one point, this was you could go up there and dig this out with your fingernails and get right inside there. Petra, the treasury in Petra is, if you went inside, that's what you would see up on the ceiling and everything. You see all these blood vessels and different anatomical cut pieces of, like it's what you see inside of a chunk of tissue. And they're all made like this. Because the entire Earth is covered with this kind of stuff. It was all alive at one time. I'm sorry, the whole Earth, just like they said, was made out of titans or whatever. And then I got on feeling there was every word that I can find now, it seems to be based in substance of every ancient writing. And Velikovsky was the hero. He went back and looked at all the stuff they laughed at him, destroyed his life, really. And they do that to everybody. And they try to do that to me, but I don't destroy quite that easily. Well, he didn't destroy easily either. He fought like hell. And I'm going to fight like hell too. If they can't take it, they can't take it. But you deserve the truth. All right, they're talking about these stones and saying these are anthracite stones, and they have all kinds of names for these things. That is flesh that's hardened up. And they poke these holes in and shave them right off when they were wet. You could do it with a stick. I mean, obviously they pressed them into molds. I'm just teasing. Okay, these are Brian Forrester and the ancient astronaut people, and they're looking into these stones, and they're all exactly identical. Obviously they're made, well, let's go this way.
Every one of these H blocks is exactly the same, so it's like a prefabrication process.
Put them in the same molds.
X hundred of these, and whatever machinery it is that they had was able, with amazing accuracy, to replicate one after another after another.
Okay, oops. Let's go back to that. See that? As I told you, they used some lousy materials in these blocks. They just took a bunch of body parts, stuffed them in there, and crushed them like a car crusher. Probably the mafia was down there. Anyway, obviously they were put in some kind of mold. There's no other way to do this. Anyway, Brian Forrester has DNA of ancient long-headed people from down in Peru, and they won't pay any attention to that. They don't pay attention to my giants. I have giants going back 5 years or more now, DNA certified. I have mirrors over and over and over and over, showed them. So nobody's going to pay any attention to this. But if you want truth, this is the truth. And now, who built these blocks? I don't know. They had high-tech equipment, I can tell you that. And then if you look in the ancient writings and in the Sumerian stuff, they talk about having space rockets and shooting back and forth to Nibiru and mining gold and, all kinds of high-tech equipment. So at this point, how can you not go with that? You have to look at that as very likely possible information. Right? Somebody had equipment to do this. Somebody had that bulldozer-looking thing riding around on there, scooping these things up, putting them in presses, building these things. And why they build them up on the top of mountains? Is it because there was that gigantic flood they talked about? And there was no other place other than that was dry? That's what I have to think about, because nobody's paid any attention to the actual truth of the texts that were written, except Velikovsky, and destroyed him they did. Well, it's time now that the evidence is so overwhelming, there is no way to hide from it. All right? Okay, my friends, a very, very strange thing just happened. I think we may be able to get this into mainstream. All right, stick with me. There's a serious interest, sounds like to me. If it's real, I can't state anything other than it sounds very intriguing that mud fossils could be in a mainstream university soon. Stay tuned.